All right. Good afternoon. We're changing up the program a little bit. We're going to go with our guests on Yemen. First, David, if we could connect David Gressley, who is, I think, in an undisclosed location somewhere in Yemen.
He's on the ship.
He's on the ship? All right, there we go. We see you, David. If we could put him up on the screen here, Tom. Okay, just wait 1 second. Okay, David, can you hear us?
I hear you fine. So we're calling from the Endeavor itself.
Endeavor. That's just all right. You may get the Emmy for best briefing location. But in all seriousness, we're delighted to be joined by Achim Steiner, who you know is the administrator of the UN Development Program, and as you heard, David Gressley, the UN resident humanitarian coordinator in Yemen. Achim is here in the room. David is, as you heard, in the Endeavor vessel, and they're here to update you and hopefully give us some good news on the Safer tanker. Achim, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Stefan. And today marks a very special day. As many of you have followed the FSO Safer saga and story, you will realize that with the arrival of the Endeavor next to the FSO Safer in the Red Sea, we truly have reached a critical milestone. And I'm delighted that David and my colleague Jan Thomas also are joining us literally live from the Endeavor vessel, which this afternoon arrived next to the FSO Safer. This has been a long journey, often also people asking, why is it taking so long? And let me tell you, with this arrival of the Endeavor, we mark an extraordinarily intense process of trying to, first of all, in the negotiations led by David in Yemen, with all the parties concerned, to create the conditions and an agreement within which we could actually mount such a salvage operation. A major fundraising operation that leads us to, at this point in time, having almost secured the majority of the funding. The total cost for the two phases or the two parts of this operation are about 142 million. For the emergency phase, which is literally to get the oil off the FSO Safer onto the Nautica, we are still missing $14 million, and this is something that we are trying desperately to secure in the next few days in order to be able to complete that phase, and then there is another $50 million for the installation of a calm buoy. We had to secure a large marine or large vessel that is essentially uniquely built for the purpose of transporting oil, and in today's marketplace that proved almost impossible. Prices had doubled, no vessels were available. We finally managed to secure one and purchased it, even though we were not yet clear whether we could get all the funding. Enormous and complex preparatory steps had to be taken over the last few months, from actually finding a shipbroker, maritime lawyers, oil spill experts, developing contingency plans, security plans, and negotiating insurance policies. In fact, we completed only on Friday evening at midnight the negotiation of the necessary insurance policy package, which then allowed us to immediately give the signal for the Endeavor to depart early Monday morning sunrise from Djibouti and arrive there today. David will in a moment speak to the situation at the FSO Safer, the next steps that are happening. Let me end by saying that I consider today's news simply one more step in a very critical, complex operation, but it's a great signal both for the people and planet really in Yemen, in the Red Sea, but also for this idea that multilateralism, in this moment the United Nations truly is illustrating what it means to take preventive action. Nothing could be a more drastic illustration of what it means to stop this catastrophe potentially from happening, and doing so at a fraction of the cost that it would take to clean up an oil spill of this magnitude. With that, Stefan, shall we go straight to David?
Thank you. Please. David, go ahead.
Well, thank you very much for the introduction. Yes, we're here on the Endeavor. We left yesterday from Djibouti, and I want to thank the Djiboutian government for the support that they provided us. in the Djibouti port area. Very much appreciated. And we arrived this morning in the Port of Hodeidah area and proceeded to move to the Safer site as we speak. As was mentioned, this is a culmination of 2 years of work, but it's just the first step on the operation. We have many steps to carry through before we finish the work here. We need to get the vessel, which you've seen the photographs of, prepared for the transfer of oil, bring in the new vessel to receive the oil. We need to detach the old vessel, tow it away for scrapping, and then bring in a buoy that will be used to attach the new vessel to the pipeline. Until all four pieces are complete, we really won't have a fully secure oil storage and protection for the environment. This is a very volatile environment that we're working in politically and security-wise. It would be naive to believe that we'll be able to go through all of this without any hiccup or obstacle, but we have so far been able to overcome every obstacle that has come our way, and we will continue to do so, and I believe we can succeed in the end. But we're very happy to be at least on site where we can start the work. We have a great team. Achim has mentioned all the great professionals brought on board into UNDP, but also UNDP professional staff, including my colleague Jan Thomas, who's a project manager sitting next to me, as well as a team on the ground in Yemen. And I believe that professionalism will carry us through. I also really have to congratulate and thank the government of Yemen for its support for this effort. It's, even though the parties are in conflict, the fact that they see the greater danger and greater willing to contribute, and they put in $5 million of their own funding to this project, I think shows how everybody can come together to confront a common threat. So the authorities here in Sana'a have been cooperating since the agreement that we signed with them in March 2022, and I'm confident they will continue to honor that. I also want to quickly mention the major donor states that contributed, starting with Saudi Arabia, the Netherlands, Germany, the United States, and the United Kingdom. The EU and 19 others have contributed. We need to, I think, cite the fact that Egypt's Suez Canal Authority provided free passage for the endeavor, which is a very significant contribution. As I mentioned, the host nation for the operations launch in Djibouti needs to be recognized. Various private companies have contributed, including the International Association of Oil and Gas Producers, the SSA Group, the Trafigura Foundation, Octavia, and Cal Valley are all private sector and foundations that have contributed. Our crowdfunding has reached nearly $300,000 from the global public. There's also been a reimbursable disbursement provided by OCHA that's giving us the liquidity that needs to be repaid, but is allowing us to do the work that we're seeing today. In fact, the whole UN family has worked together on this, and I must highlight the World Food Program, who did a lot of work, particularly in identifying the Endeavour Euronav as a potential supplier of the vessel, but many other logistical support. The International Maritime Organization is providing us critical incident management support on the ground, UNEP, OCHA, among others. And of course, I can't forget UNDP, who is doing the big
David, we seem to have lost you. All right, hopefully we'll go back to David, but maybe if there are any questions now for Mr. Steiner, we'll take them now, and then we'll go back to David. Pam.
Thank you very much, both of you, for the briefing. It's been a long time coming on the...
still...
Oh,
Good.
Yeah,
go ahead, David.
I'm just concluding. Yeah, I'm just going to conclude. But we really need to finalize the funding. We need an additional $14 million immediately for what is happening today with the transfer, and a total of $29 million to finish this project and eliminate this threat once and for all. Thank you for your interest, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. But if you also want to contribute, don't forget, you can contribute at un.org/stop Red Sea spill. Thank you very much.
So we'll send
Well,
that. We'll send
thanks.
that
Yeah,
around.
we're not allowed, but
First
it's
question
good to know.
Pam Falk, CBS News. Pam, go ahead.
Yes, thank you both for the briefing. It's Pamela Falk from CBS News. Can you tell us how much oil is ultimately being transferred? I mean, we've covered this for years. And during the time it took you to get this clearly a landmark rescue, if you want to call it that, has any of the oil leaked? And how has it been maintained? And where does the oil go after this, by the way? Thank you.
David has just disappeared again, yeah. Well, look, since 2015, there have only been skeleton crew by the Yemeni oil company on the tanker, and they actually deserve a lot of credit because they've tried to keep it going. There was a small oil leak about 2 years ago, more in the engine room, that was fixed temporarily. Nobody knows exactly the amount of oil that is on there, but the estimate is around 1.14 million barrels. And essentially, that oil will now have to undergo testing in order to determine its quality. We also, in the process of undertaking this operation, literally tomorrow begins the securing of the vessel. The technical team will begin to do inspections. As a next step, it will actually begin to work on the stabilization of tanks. Inert gas may have to be pumped into them in order to deal with built-up gases that could be very explosive. There will be, then the arrival of the Nautica, the actual vessel onto which the oil will be pumped, followed by the ship-to-ship transfer, and then the clearing of the tanks. So these are the steps that are now envisaged over the next few weeks. And essentially, we are, at this moment, confident that there are no leaks taking place because nothing has been detected. But the risk remains extremely high that this could occur again.
And can you just explain what you're doing, if you don't mind? I mean, what does the Endeavor do? Is it taking all the oil?
No, and maybe, David, you want to come in as well. I'm not sure if you can hear us, but the Endeavor is the technical support vessel that Smith, as a company, as a salvage company, has been contracted to bring alongside. It brings the crane, the pumps, the equipment, and the experts. There are, I think, at the moment, well over 60 people on the Endeavor, and they will essentially conduct the ship-to-ship transfer plus all the securing. But David, can you hear us at the moment? Yeah.
David, you're muted. Let's go ahead.
With my hand gestures, you could tell I could hear you. We're subject to Starlink lights, so sometimes they skip. But yes, I can hear, and the Endeavor is very much a support vessel designed to provide the equipment and necessary expertise to prepare the vessel, as was described by Achim. And they intend to start that tomorrow. They intend to start pumping inert gas in tomorrow to secure the oil chambers so that they no longer have atmospheric oxygen. That's the first safety precaution to be taken, but they'll examine the whole vessel. They need to figure out the best way to empty the oil before they start to do that so that they don't put undue stress on any particular part of the vessel. But they actually know what they're doing, and they've had a good chance to go around the vessel so far, and they think this is going to be, so far, not too terribly difficult, and there's no obvious leaks or anything like that that are visible as we go around the vessel. But back over to you.
There was a question about where the oil is going to go.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. The oil will go to the Nautica and be held in the Nautica until the issue of how to sell the oil can be resolved. There's some legal issues, two parties, Aden, Sana, that will have to come to an agreement, including with those who own the oil. Most of the oil is owned by the government of Yemen, state-owned companies, over 90%, but there are some residual owners as well. So there's some legal technicalities to overcome, but primarily the agreement in Sana and Aden. Aden is pretty much okay with getting the oil sold, so it's more issue here in Sana'a. Well, not in Sana'a, but the authorities in Sana'a, I should say.
Ephraim, Arab News. And
Thank you, Steph. Mr. Gressly, two quick questions, please. So given all the steps that you just elaborated on, the next few steps, when do you think the actual emptying of the oil will actually begin? That's one question. Second, on the Houthi authorities' cooperation, are they involved at all in the process? Are they involved in the daily tasks of the process, or are they leaving the whole thing to the technicians and to you guys to operate? What does their cooperation look like? And one quick one for Mr. Steiner as well. $14 million, how do you explain that such a small number has proven so difficult to get so far? And how are you going about getting it? Thank you.
thank you, David. Go ahead.
On the first question, maybe 10 days, 2 weeks, depending on how it goes, what's found. Unless there's complications, I think 2 weeks would be enough time to initiate the actual transfer of the oil, from what the crew has been telling us here. So I think that's fine. What was the second question? And on this, the authorities in Sana'a, no, they're not involved in the direct implementation of the operations, but of course they're involved in securing the perimeter. They're involved in discussions with us on how this will be done, and very much involved in the details as well. We've worked in great over the last few weeks, great detail with them to go through each of the steps so that they're comfortable with everything. They have their own technical experts as well, with good expertise actually, both in Aden and in Sana'a. So we've been working with them over the months. So. And of course, the crew, and I think the important thing about we need to recognize is the crew on the Safer has been keeping this ship afloat for the last several years. Probably very poorly paid and supported, but nonetheless have kept the vessel afloat. In fact, we met one of them today, and I had to congratulate him as one of the unsung heroes of the FSO Safer, because they've been keeping this thing afloat while we figure out how to organize this kind of rescue of the situation. So much appreciated.
Yes, first of all, let me say it's quite remarkable that, a crisis that is really not the fault of anybody else in the world has now generated over 14 million in pledges. So I would like to begin with turning the question on its head and say, it's quite remarkable that we have managed in repeated appeals, one has to say, and pledging conferences that David and many others have, in a sense, been involved with. One of the challenges we faced also is that the cost of this whole operation exploded last year as a result also of the events in Ukraine. The global market for very large crude carriers almost doubled in cost. We had to begin a search time and again to find a vessel that is even available on the market. But in another sense, you're right. I also sometimes wonder, there are certainly in the corporate world and in the sectors from shipping to oil and gas, extraordinary moments of profitability. And I think this is one reason why we also had hoped that there would be, a stronger stepping forward. Having said that, the International Association of Oil and Gas Producers has pledged 10 million. And we are working the phones right now, literally to CEOs to say, come on, we have to close this gap right now. Even school children in Maryland have donated to this. It would be truly an ironic and missed opportunity not to step up. So that is our appeal right now.
Thank you. Murad, Al Jazeera.
Thank you. What are the impacts if you couldn't secure this 14 million for the first gap, for the first phase? And also, what exactly you need for the second phase? How much you need?
Well, just to be clear, we have pushed the financial rules and regulations of the UN to its limits in making decisions that normally we would not take, because the UN, like any public institution, has to have an approved budget in order to proceed. I want to credit our colleague Martin Griffiths and our emergency relief coordinator also, because the OCHA SURF Fund, Critical Emergencies Relief Fund, was actually a way of bridging the financial gap, as David mentioned earlier on, that allowed us to deal with the cash flow challenge. But the harsh truth is either we secure the funding or we will be essentially not in line with our own financial rules and regulations. And for now, I don't think that is a scenario that we envisage will still be here 10 days from now. So we are hopeful, and we are doing everything we can right now to mobilize these remaining 14 million. But, you know, at some point, somebody will have to finance this. And we have certainly gone to the limits in UNDP to be able to make possible what we could to not slow down this operation. And as I mentioned, literally until Friday night, we were negotiating with an insurance broker in London, Howden, with a consortium of approximately 24 underwriters in order to negotiate a package of insurance policies that would allow us to deal with the risks that need to be and can be insured. Some of them cannot be insured. And literally within 36 hours of securing that on Friday evening, the Endeavour left from Djibouti and has arrived today. So it also shows to you we are working literally against the clock and through the night at times at the moment.
Yeah, for the second phase, I understand.
The second phase, we have a little bit more time because that involves the construction of the convoy, but it is integral to this operation as it was negotiated. So that means over the next few weeks, we also need to secure those additional 15 million, because with that, we are then able to install the convoy. Some of you may ask also what happens to the FSO Safer. We have already undertaken a bidding process in which the transport, the towing of the Safer and its safe disposal, wrecking, will then be also taken care of. And this is sort of an integral part of the whole operation. So emergency phase, ship-to-ship transfer, the removal of the FSO Safer and its wrecking, and the installation of the convoy. That is, in a sense, the totality of the project.
Thank you. Stefano, and then we'll go to Amélie from
Yeah.
AFP online.
Yes, Stefano Vaccara, Voce New York. Maybe it was already clear, but I missed it. I mean, if the oil, the quantity of oil that is on the ship is, you say 1 million and...
Yeah.
So the value is much more than the money that you need, right? How much is today the oil barrel price?
Let me also ask David to come in here. I mean, we you know, because nobody has been able to even take an oil sample of the Safer until now. This happens literally this week for the first time in years. Quality of the oil, the exact determination of the quantity of the oil, but let's assume the quantity is around 1.14 million barrels. It would not cover the cost of the operation. But David, you want to comment since you led the negotiations on this?
Yeah, I think what's important to recognize is that there are a number of legal issues as well as political agreements that need to be reached in order to sell the oil for whatever purpose. And so early on, we made a collective decision that it's best to go ahead and just secure the oil so it's no longer a threat to spill, and then work out the details later. If it takes months or even longer, well, okay, fine, at least the oil is secure. But that means it's not available to either support this project or any other use of that. What I can say is both parties in Sana, as well, of course, in Aden, is they're quite open for the oil to eventually be sold for the benefit of the people of Yemen. But the details of that, really, we haven't advanced very far in those discussions. So that's a step beyond what we're talking about here today.
Yes.
Back over to you.
And then I have another aspect about security. I mean, this could be a target for terrorists, for any organization that want to do a huge damage. So what is the, I mean, we can go into the details, but do you have security at the moment that protects the ship and your work?
Well, let me tell you one reason why, at the end of the day, perhaps it is only the United Nations that can, in the end, bring together private contractors, funders, technical experts, the goodwill of riparian states in the Red Sea, is precisely because it is an operation for which there are no absolute safety nets. Let's be very clear. What has been negotiated is to deconflict the area in which the Safer is currently anchored. As David has explained, there has been very detailed, intense and continued negotiations with the internationally recognized government, the de facto authorities, to create the conditions under which this operation can take place. And this morning, we also had, support in navigating the Endeavour into the area where the FSO Safer is from the, ships that were in Hodeidah. So far, we are receiving all the collaboration that all sides have committed. But you mentioned terrorist attacks. It's a possibility, although it would make very little sense to blow up an oil tanker in the Red Sea with all that it would do to the countries in the region, including Yemen and Yemenis above all. But yes, there are risks, and no, there is no possibility of arriving with a flotilla of naval vessels. This is a UN operation, a civilian operation in that sense, and we are undertaking with our eyes wide open.
Thank you. We'll go to, I'll come back to you. Amélie from AFP online. Amélie?
Yes, hi. Sorry, my question has already been asked, but I wanted to have more details on the timeline. I mean, you said that the Nautica could start the transfer of the oil by 10 days or 2 weeks. Then how long is it going to take? I mean, how long is the whole operation going to take? When do you expect this whole operation to be finished? Thank you.
Well, very briefly, as David already said, the preparatory phase, which is all to do about inspecting the vessel, securing the vessel, inserting the inert gases, in doing inspections underwater also the vessel, installing the crane. I mean, I don't know whether we'll see some images later on. On the support vessel, the Endeavour, is a crane that is essentially an essential part of the equipment to be able to reach into the tanks of the FSO Safer and then do the pump ship-to-ship transfer. All of this is, expected to happen in this first phase in the next 10 to 14 days. Then the ship-to-ship transfer could take anywhere between 15 to 21 days. But again, we are very cautious about these predictions because at any point, at any stage, as we have jointly pointed out, we may encounter new challenges. So I think it is fair to say it is today, end of May. If all goes according to plan, somewhere late June, early July, we might be in a position to say that that critical phase of the ship-to-ship transfer could be completed. We then still have the cleaning of the tanks in the FSO Safer, which has to happen after the oil has been transferred. And this has all been part of this elaborate planning process that took months, and to some of you seemed like, why is this taking so long? Because we had to work out every little detail of that operation. So I think as of where we are now, and I'm sorry that we can't see David and Jan Thomas, I think maybe we've lost the connection again. The arrival today literally gets the clock ticking on the operation, and that could be anywhere between, let's say, 4 to 6 weeks.
Thank you. We'll go to Murad, and then we'll close it off. Thank you. Go ahead, Murad.
Will the media be allowed to cover and film this operation once it starts? I mean, to be on the location itself, to film?
We are working right now. I assume that, our colleagues are not back online. We are working right now on, first of all, ensuring that we are able to begin the operation. The arrival of the Endeavour was certainly a critical part of that. I would expect somewhere in the next, couple of weeks, we will try and find an opportunity that would allow journalists to hopefully be able to actually visit the site, be briefed, at least on the Endeavour, and get a better feel for what is actually being done as the work proceeds. Right now, I seek your understanding that given all the security concerns, and first of all, being able to navigate to the FSO Safer safely, led us to the conclusion that we would provide you with updates from now on, probably every day, if there is news to report. And also bearing in mind that we continue to, pay great attention to liaising with both the authorities in Aden and in Sana'a, because it is their confidence and trust that we are absolutely dependent on.
Thank you. David, are you online?
I am. Can
Great.
you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Just wonder if you have any closing points, because we were coming in, your connection was in and out.
Yeah. No, just on the last point, we have secured approval in principle for a number of journalists to come in. I believe the first trip will be June 5th, coming into Sana'a, deploying down to Hodeidah. I think we have 2 or 3 groups that will be coming in during the operation. So there will be opportunities, and we're trying to facilitate that as best we can. But, like we've said repeatedly, not everything's going to be glitch-free as we go through this. It took 2 years to get here. So give us some time and space to overcome those as we go by with this process. But at least we're here. So it's a good start. Thank you.
Excellent. David and Jan, thank you very much. We wish you smooth sailing and good luck with everything. And Achim, thank you for being here. And we hope to have the 2 of you back soon to give us regular updates on this very exciting project. Take care. Thank you.